duly against reasonable opposition, won 2 races on the day at Goodwood at the end of September. And this was a benison, a breathing space, if you will, for BRM. And people could see that the car could actually go, it could accelerate tremendously, it had terrific speed, and it was quite competent, really. Then there was a non-championship Formula One race at Spain a month later. And the team took 2 cars to Spain. Parnell drove one of them and started, again they had various problems, but Parnell qualified quite well. Ferrari was there, Alfa wasn't, but Ferrari was there, and Parnell qualified quite well, and the early laps was right up behind them with a supercharger shaft, sheared. Peter Walker drove the other car. He persevered a bit longer, but a manufacturing problem with the gearbox retired him. So the appearance was not brilliant, but at least BRM had come and had shown, you know, that its cars could compete in an international race. Then a long period of time elapsed until the July of 1951, when BRM was able to enter 2 cars for the British Grand Prix. They missed races early in the year, but they could hardly not come to the British Grand Prix. Again, they were late arriving. Again, they had to start from the back of the field, and Peter Walker on the left, Reg Parnell on the right, accelerated away from the line this time, fine, no problems. But very early on, both drivers started to feel tremendous heat in the car. They had never really driven the cars this long and this far before, and the exhaust pipes were running through the bodywork. And they only a few laps into the race, they started to feel tremendous heat. It became actually painful. And they made 2 pit stops, and at the second one, they wrapped their legs in burn dressings to try to reduce the pain. Reg Parnell said, "It's the toughest job I ever undertook. The steering wheel had little aluminum buttons on the back, you know, for a grip, and it got to the point where they could barely manage to hold on to the wheel because the heat from these little buttons was so intense, and they didn't want to shift the car because that meant moving the left foot over toward the hot part of the cockpit." But Parnell, you know, spoke for the team members when he said, "You know, I almost thought of giving up, but when I thought of the effort that everybody put into bringing this car here," he said, "I just couldn't. I couldn't, so I pressed on." And toward they had gone there with a limited rev, you know, they said only use 10,500. And they could have used more later in the race, but they were just, the drivers were too beat to even think of doing so. But they finished 5th, Parnell, and 7th, Peter Walker. So finishing a race, not a bad show for BRM. And this was really the first chance that the Continentals had to see this wonder car in action. And of course, the BRM had been viewed as a tremendous threat by all the Continental competitors, Talbot, Ferrari, Maserati, Alfa. You know, they're obviously very worried because they've read all this incredible press about this car. And they could see at Silverstone that the car had potential. The next big event for BRM was the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. 2 cars were entered. Mays is on the right. The team is getting ready to prepare these 2 cars for the race. This, of course, is in Boccalupo, in the heart of the Italian land, right in the midst of the Italian competitors' world, and you know, BRM hoped to do well. And they came with their equipment which by now, thanks to various grants and a whip around among Britain's motor clubs and among vehicle makers, included a fantastically well-equipped mobile workshop. And when they arrived at Monza, it looked like the German teams of yore coming in with absolutely fantastic equipment. Everybody said, well, this is obviously very serious. You know, these guys are coming here with bells on. And so it looked very, very impressive. However, it proved less than that. Ken Richardson had been a test driver for BRM. Raymond Mays assigned him the job of driving, but that didn't work out. The RAC refused permission for him to drive. The gearbox of one car failed, and Peter Berthen decided to withdraw the other car, which was destined for Reg Parnell, because he feared that the gearbox might suffer similar problems. And this was for the team that had struggled so hard to get these cars ready for Italy, a tremendously demotivating set of decisions. And because they would have liked to see Reg Parnell, even if just for a few laps, out there battling with the Italians, which he could very well have done, and I'm sure would have done. But BRM went away from Monza with its proverbial tail between its legs. Very, very sad consequence. However, Mays kept one car at Monza. The owner of the track said, you know, we like what you're trying to do. We won't charge you anything for the use of the track. You can stay here as long as you want. Use our garages, no problem. We want you to test the car, and they did. They did a lot of testing. This was the time when the car adopted disc brakes. It was the first Grand Prix car to have disc brakes. Girling built a set of discs for it, and they started to test them late in 51 at Monza. They spent a lot of time there, and then they came back to Monza in 52, in the spring of 52, when Sterling Moss joined the effort. Sterling came to test the car and potentially race the car. So that was sort of the outlook for 52. However, 52 was shaping up as a problematic year. Alfa Romeo had sort of said, well, we may not continue. And Alfa Romeo were it was really up to them, Alfa versus Ferrari, with kind of Maserati looking on. And Alfa wasn't sure if they would continue. So the race organizers in Formula One, which technically went on to 1953, were thinking, well, who's going to be competing in our Formula One races? Ferrari was ready. Ferrari built new cars, but would BRM? And one of the key races was an event in Turin in April. Moss was ready. They prepared two cars. Moss would drive the disc brake car, and they had a drum brake car spare to go to Turin in April. And at that time, Raymond Mays was romancing Juan Fangio. He thought, Fangio, if Alfa aren't racing in 52, I'd like to have Fangio driving for BRM. And Gonzalez, his countryman, was interested as well. And Fangio heard that, Mays heard that Fangio was coming to Europe, and he said, I'd like you to come to Folkestone to test our car. Mays, and when Fangio said, yes, it'll be sometime in April, Mays said, well, we won't compete at Turin. We'll take our good car to Folkestone so that Fangio can test it. And Fangio did. Fangio came and Gonzalez came, and Mays said that, he said, every driver before who had ever driven the BRM had been in awe of the car.